What's going on, guys? Welcome back to class. This is technically part 3 of our Tccc adapted series. Today we're going to cover A in March. Stands for Airway. But before we do get into that, I want to give you, for anybody who's new here, kind of give you an idea of what this is about. We're going over Tccc, which is Tactical Combat Casualty Care. It is a program, a set of rules, guidelines that's been implemented in modern militaries since the early 90s. This has been basically the gold standard for combat medicine ever since then. Now, throughout the years, so 90s, 2000s, 2010, 2020, so we're going on almost 30 years of having this same rule, the same set of guidelines. Now, it's been tweaked here and there. There have been some changes throughout this roughly 30-year span of the Tccc guidelines, but there was no conflict, there was no war to analyze that was peer-to-peer of two modern militaries like Ukraine and Russia. So what we're learning now in this peer-to-peer fight stresses a lot of fatal gaps that Tccc now has in the modern battlefield. That's probably the best way to put it. And I've seen these in my time in Ukraine and my multiple CMC courses I've taken, CLS, BLS courses. I've done medical training for people as well. And it's always taught from the same slides, the same Tccc, the same guidelines, and a lot of them are very, very good at a foundational level. I want to be clear about that. But like I said, there are some major gaps that are costing lives in Ukraine, and there's been as far as I can find through all my research and looking for people talking about this, I can't find it anywhere. There is nobody's talking about the shift that needs to happen in combat medicine in a peer-to-peer and drone-saturated battlefield. Okay, so that's the whole goal of this series. Because I haven't seen this anywhere and I can't reference it anywhere, it's kind of like why I started the Different Breed channel to begin with. Because when I joined the International Legion, before I joined the International Legion, I was looking for some resources, some help, some guidance. Where do I go? How do I help Ukraine? What do I do? There were no resources back then, back at January 2023. So I created a YouTube channel trying to help fill that gap. Now I'm seeing a gap where nobody's talking about these major holes in Tccc, and hopefully my goal at least is to fill that gap. Now, with that said, this type of content gets record low views because it's not flashy. If you're not interested in combat medicine, it's not fun for you. It's almost more like homework, and I understand that. But with that said, I need your help more than ever to like, share, and subscribe. Specifically sharing these videos around, because there's a lot of people on their way out to Ukraine, currently in Ukraine, considering coming to Ukraine, that I think this information can genuinely help a lot. So let's move forward. That's the whole idea of this series. In the last lesson, we went over the first part of the March algorithm, which is M, the letter M, which stands for massive bleeds. If you missed that one, go back. Check out massive bleeds, come back afterwards to Airway. Now we're on Airway. So we're going to break this up into kind of two different parts, okay? Good signs, what you want to see when you are on the A step of March, Airway, and then bad signs, when you need to start taking action, okay? So you pull up onto a situation where there's a casualty and you have already assessed for massive bleeds, because that's M in March. You've already assessed for massive bleeds, handled that situation. Now you're on to A, right? Airway. One of the best ways and easiest ways to establish if this person has an open airway is if they're talking. If they're talking, they're breathing 100% of the time. So if you're like, hey, Shaka, talk to me. You okay? Talk to me. Yeah, I'm all right. Okay. His airway's open. You can move on. You're already on your next step. Um, Now, if not, that's where we get into the interventions that need to take place. Okay, so potentially this person was blown up or whatever, they're unconscious. So we're going to talk about what your the negative signs, the signs that you see that tell you, okay, this person's airway is obstructed or blocked. Okay, and I've got some notes pulled up here too, so I don't have to so I can keep things a little smoothly, or keep things smooth. So you pull up on this person, and there's a few things that you can realize. They're unconscious and snoring, really hard snoring, right? That means they're struggling to breathe. Gurgling, you could see at their mouth or you can hear gurgling. So that means they're trying to breathe, but there's some kind of a liquid obstructing them. Um, Blood or vomit in the mouth, you can see it on the outside, you can see it kind of dripping out. That's another sign, okay, they could have an obstructed airway. Um, and then facial trauma is a big one, and unfortunately, it happens a lot in Ukraine because of blast injuries. So, if they have part of their face missing, part of their jaw is missing, the chances are that there is an issue with their airway go up much higher exponentially. Okay, so what do we do when we roll up on somebody who has any of these problems that we just witnessed? Okay, now depending on your scenario, your tactical situation in the battlefield, if you're still um, if you're still in the fight, more or less, you've gained fire superiority, but you're not able to, completely focus on this casualty. The number one thing you can do for this guy is roll him into the recovery position. And I'll put some visual aids here. The recovery position is super slept on, but it saves lives. And basically, you're just rolling them onto their side in a specific way to uh, help anything in their mouth or in their throat come out on its own. Any blood, any saliva, any dip or snooze packets, that does become an issue, especially when they're unconscious. Um, you roll them. It's something that you can do quickly and still remain in the fight, more or less. So you're able to roll them over onto their side. Boom. Now that stuff's able to come out of their mouth. Now all of a sudden they're not gurgling, they're not snoring. That stuff is not in their throat. Okay. Aside from it, just the recovery position, something, if you're able to focus more on this casualty, is the head tilt chin lift. You've probably heard of this before if you're at all into medicine, but basically that means you get up by their head. They are supine, right? So they're laying on their back. You get up back behind their head and you're going to lift their head so it opens their airway, and then you head tilt back, chin lift forward. There's a visual aid here, but basically you can see it better like this. Head is tilting and then the chin is lifting, and you're holding this position for them, basically holding it so that they can get air in their airways open. Okay. Now this will only work if there's nothing stuck in their throat, right? With a lot of blast injuries, they'll have teeth that's stuck in their mouth. They'll have blood in their mouth. They could have vomit in their mouth, bile. So before you're doing this head tilt chin lift, you want to make sure they don't have anything in there. So the best way to do this is typically you got a flashlight, you're looking in their mouth, boom, okay, it looks okay. Or if it's dark, you can't see, but you can tell there's something in there, you can go in with a finger and you do a quick finger swipe. Okay, you don't want to push anything down into their throat, so it's got to be shallow, but you could try to scrape anything that's out of their mouth. It's gnarly, dude, but you're trying to save this person's life, right? So now the airway, there's nothing obstructing it. Now you can do the head tilt chin lift, where you get up behind them, tilt the head back, chin lift up, okay? But the one thing about this is if they're unconscious and you're doing this, you need to hold them in this position now, because now you're effectively, you are their airway. You are what's making it open, okay? Now, if this, let's say you're not able to hold this person's airway for, the next X amount of hours before your extract or your CASEVAC arrives. Okay, so that's when we're coming up with interventions like the NPA, the nasal pharyngeal airway. NPAs go into the nose and they come down. I'll put some visual aids. They come into the nose and down into the throat. That it's ensuring a patent is what it's called, patent airway. It's ensuring that there is room for air to come through. Okay, that way you could put this in there and you could continue doing other stuff. Maybe you got to work on other parts of their body, because where there's one injury, there's multiple in combat medicine typically. So we're gonna go over that. I have a video actually of me doing this, giving an NPA, nasopharyngeal airway, to Alfie. Rest in peace, Alfie, one of my best buds. And this was during training. He volunteered to be the test dummy for our team to see what it looks like. And also, he wanted to feel how it felt to have one of these in. It's uncomfortable. So here's that video.
Okay, sit over.
He said, stop.
Like swallowing.
Yep.
Пускай откроет рот и вытянет язык, так будет легче.
So open your mouth, it will be easier.
Ставь. Yeah.
See it?
Yeah.
How you feeling, buddy?
Дыши. Дыши через нос.
Keep breathing.
Close your mouth and breathe through your nose.
Now, when dealing with NPAs, there's a couple of important, very important things. You want to make sure that the NPA that you have in your IFAC, your individual first aid kit, is the right size. If it's too small or too big, it's not going to work. So the best way that people have been able to kind of figure out a good size, this is too small, but a good way to figure out the good perfect size for you, the earlobe to nose test. So this is part of it's on my earlobe here. Then this part needs to touch my nose. If it does not, or it's way too far over, it's the wrong size. So this one is very clearly the wrong size. This is actually a female or a child NPA that I have in this training IFAC, but it needs to touch earlobe to nose, needs to touch. Make sure it fits you, right? And make sure that's in your IFAC, because when a medic comes up to help you, they're opening your IFAC to help you. That stuff that is in your IFAC is for the medic to use on you. Okay, so let's say you've got your the NPA is the right size, right? So now you're going to be inserting it. You've got to lube this thing up, otherwise it's going to be a mother effer for the person you're putting it into. Almost every single NPA comes with a pouch of lube inside. So rip that out, boom, lube it up, boom, boom, boom. Okay, now the way it goes in is specific. It is, you have to do it the right way or it's not going to work. So number one, it's got to be, I got to change this. Here, I'm back. So there is a specific way you have to insert the NPA. So you got to lube it up. After you lube it up, you're going to go in as it's curving down. They all curve, right? It's got to curve down. Let me turn a little bit here. It's got to be curving down because it's going to go down into their airway like this. Down into their airway. Now, on every single NPA, if you can see, there's a bevel, meaning there is a part that it's like sliced, right? It's angled. That angle always needs to face towards the inside of the nose. Okay, so the bevel is like, can you see this? Is like this, which means, it's hard to tell here, but it goes like this towards this side of the nose. So it would go in. You do a little wiggle action, wiggle, 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 wiggle. Boom, now it's in, okay? And you've got to hold it. You got to hold it because the body will naturally want to push it out. So you're holding it, and as you're holding it, you've already prepped a couple pieces of medical tape, or you can use some gauze, but either way, you want to, once it's in there, you want to secure it. Now, what's important that you don't do is don't cover the hole that's giving them air. Don't put tape over the hole to secure it. Don't put gauze over the hole. There's certain ways where you can, how you can secure this with tape or with gauze by tying it around loosely and then around the back of their head, for example, so that it stays in. And then your hands off, you can continue moving to your other interventions. Okay, so quick recap on the NPA because that's a big one. This person they're not able to keep their own airway patent. They're not able to keep their own airway open. Typically, that means they're unconscious or they're semi-conscious. They have an altered state of mind. They're not really all there. That means you got to put one of these in so there is an opening basically that'll breathe for them. Okay, so and that's after you've removed anything, you've checked their mouth, you've removed anything that's already in there. Because if there's stuff stuck down here and you put one of these in, it's not going to help, right? Okay, if it doesn't work in one nostril, you can try the other nostril, but you got to remember the bevel's supposed to be towards the nose. But again, in so many of these classes that you're going to take for Tccc, for whether it's for CLS, combat life saving, or whether it's CMC, combat medic course, there's so much that there's a lot of filler content that is important. It is, don't get me wrong, but like, okay, before you apply an NPA, make sure you wash your hands, make sure you put on your gloves, make sure you do all this stuff. Yes, that is all very important, but the information I'm giving you is in an oh shit situation, right? All of a sudden your medic just got smoked. Now you got to be the medic. And this guy's choking on his own vomit. What are you going to do? You're going to roll him into recovery position. Get that stuff out of there. He still can't breathe and he's unconscious. You're going to roll him back over. You're going to get an NPA in his nose, man. You're not worried about washing your hands at that point. You're spitting on this bitch. Wham! Right into his fucking nose. You want to save your buddy. Okay? Okay, there are OPAs, oral pharyngeal airways, but they're not used out here, and they're extremely invasive. they're like these big fat, dude. They're gnarly, and they literally open your throat up. Oh, they're gross. So I'm talking about interventions, ways to keep a patent airway, keep an open airway. NPA is going to be your number one strategy, okay, if they're unable to keep it open themselves. And of course, if this person is awake, if this person is active, they know what's going on, don't try to shove one of these in their face or in their nose if they can breathe, right? Just to do it, right? You don't need to do that. The last step, and by far the most invasive, is a crike. A crike is taught, it's actually not even supposed to be taught at a CMC level. It's a combat paramedic intervention, which is the highest it goes up to here in Ukraine, but they don't even offer combat paramedic training in Ukraine. The highest you can get trained on, with the exception of some really rare instances, is CMC. But a crike is the most invasive, based more or less. It's where you slice into their throat, and you end up putting basically a tube in their throat directly in here to bypass whatever is causing their obstruction up here. You're bypassing it by going straight into their throat. But I've never, even the most experienced medics I've ever met in Ukraine, who have helped hundreds, if not thousands, of casualties, have never done a crike in Ukraine. So just keep that in mind. We're not gonna stick around on this one on Airway for too long, because the truth is you're just not going to need to know a lot of this stuff, with the exception of maybe this one, and that's if basically you've already rolled them on their side, they're still snoring, You've already, fished in a little bit. You've already tried to scoop anything, any broken teeth or blood or vomit out of their mouth. They're still having an issue. Then you can insert one of these, and then hopefully that stops. You can hear them start to breathe. You see the chest rising and falling. That's a good indicator of an open airway. And you can also hear. You can put your head on their chest and hear their hear their lungs, and you can feel their chest rising and falling. Okay, so without a doubt, 100%, this you'll use this a micro percentage of the time that you will be needing to know your massive bleed interventions, your tourniquets, and your wound packing, which was on M. Okay, but let's say you've got all that, and they are no longer bleeding anywhere. Then you can and all of a sudden they start losing consciousness, so they're unable to keep an open airway, or maybe they are unconscious, but then they throw up in their mouth and now they can't breathe. Now you kind of have an idea. Okay, roll them on their side, get that shit out of there. The ground rules are positioning. Get them into a position where that stuff can naturally come out of their mouth, out of their face, and if that doesn't work, you're going to throw one of these in their nose. Okay, this is quick, simple. Again, this is an oh shit situation. You may not even be a medic, but now you know, hey, I can at least keep this person's airway open. If you start hearing this person snoring really, really loudly and they're unconscious and they've been injured, you know, okay, I gotta help. All right, I think for airway, that's going to be it, you guys. Very simple. Again, the most important is M, massive bleeds, okay? But we're going to get into a couple other things that are also important, and they kind of stem from massive bleeds. If this person already lost a lot of blood, then hypothermia can set in, shock can set in. So these are things that could be consequences of already losing a lot of blood. So we'll get into that in the rest of our series, but this was please like, share, subscribe, share this video around so the people who need to see it. And before I leave off, one of the reasons this needs to be taught, this is not a CLS skill. So they're not going to teach you this in your basic medical course that you get in your infantry training in Ukraine. This is a combat medic intervention, and it shouldn't be. Reason being is because everybody needs to know how to do these things, because you're not always going to have that medic. The medic could be the one that's injured, or you're separated from your team. It's just you and your buddy, and you've got to wait a week for evacuation. At least you know some of these basic skills that could potentially, you think back, oh shit, that's right, the Vegas said I could put this in. If he's snoring really loud, he can't keep his airway open. You know what I mean? That's my hope. This could potentially save a life in the future. Okay, guys, we'll see you in the next video. Love you.